So an ogive just deals with cumulative frequencies or cumulative relative frequencies. Remember when we did frequency distributions for histograms and we had 4 columns and I said there's going to be 2 more. These are the 2. Cumulative frequencies, cumulative relative frequencies. They're just frequencies and relative frequencies that are just showing a running total. And if you don't understand that, I'll show you in a bit. The background for this is that you have to be able to construct a histogram if you are making an ogive. If it's given to you, then it's just given to you. But what we're going to be focusing on are cumulative frequency histograms so that we can create a cumulative relative frequency histogram and thus an ogive. So we're not going to be dealing with the cumulative frequencies. We're going to be dealing with the cumulative relative frequencies, and that's basically what that says here. All right. So just the cumulative relative frequencies to create an ogive, as it'll enable us to estimate percentiles. And percentiles are kind of a big thing in statistics and in testing and all sorts of things. So to review percentiles, if you pick a value of a variable, like 20, like in this PowerPoint, and you call it a percentile, that means that 20% of your observations or your data or your scores or whatever it is going to fall below whatever that 20th percentile number is. If it's 80th percentile, then you're going to have 80% of the observations below that number and 20% above. Okay? All right, so if you ever get a percentile rank back from the folks that give you your testing, like SAT, ACT, PSAT, GRE, they'll often give you a percentile rank. So if they tell you, say you're in the 90th percentile, that means that as the scores fell out, 90% of the people who took that test scored below you, 10% scored above. It's not really that you're an A student. Well, maybe you are, but that score doesn't indicate an A. It just ranks you relative to everybody else. If you are in the 99th percentile, that means just about everybody scored worse than you. Here, it's 85th percentile. 85% of the scores that were earned were below yours and 15% above. Remember, median is your 50th percentile. Q1 is your 25th percentile. 25% of the observations fall below it. And Q3 is your 75th percentile. 75% of the observations in your data set are below whatever that value is. All right, if you're not sure about the running totals, here it is. Now, if you just look at these 4 columns, that's where we left off. Here are the 2 new ones. And for cumulative frequency, you just take what you have in your first cell and just repeat it. Whatever you have in your second cell, add it to the first, and that becomes the new running total. Then add the third to the 22. That would be 8 plus 22 is 30. And you just keep going like that. The very last number you get should be n, or the number of observations that you have, or the amount of data points. And your cumulative relative frequency is the same thing. You start with the same number, 0.08, 0.08. Here in your regular relative frequency column, 0.53 is second, but you add it to the 0.08 to get 0.61. Then add 0.22 to get 0.83. And eventually you should accumulate all that proportions or all that percent till you get 1. And if you've got some rounding issues, it might not be 1, but usually it is. So how does this work into an ogive? Works into it like so. Here is a cumulative relative frequency histogram. It's got the same horizontal axis as any old histogram, title, labels, and everything. The cumulative, since you're accumulating the relative frequency, the last class you have has to reach 1. So this would be the same first class, over here on the lower left. as a regular histogram. But then this class will be whatever the normal class would have been plus this amount on top. And you keep adding the extra, adding the extra, adding the extra, until finally you've added it all, and all the proportions in there have to add up to 1 or 100%. So how does the ogive work into this? This is not an ogive. It's just a cumulative relative frequency histogram. If you go from your first class, lower left, to upper right, upper right, upper right, upper right, upper right, upper right, that is your ogive, right? It's kind of a curve that shows the accumulation of your relative frequency. And you don't need this histogram anymore. It's just the backbone of it. You can leave it there and just do your work with it there and ignore it. You can do the ogive in pen and erase out the histogram if you did it in pencil, and then you're just left with the curve. I don't care. Most of what you're going to have to deal with this anyway is just a curve already made for you. So all you have to do is deal with the percentile. So here's how it works. All right, you're supposed to estimate the 50th percentile for attendance. Well, there's 0.5, that's 50%. Simple. You draw over to the curve, straight, parallel to the horizontal axis, and then straight down. So here's your horizontal, here it is down, and you're about at 77,000 people. That's your 50th percentile. It's not 100% accurate. I mean, you drew the graph by hand, that's a little bit error prone. You're estimating now off of that, so it's going to be off a little. But it's pretty good. It's actually a pretty good estimate for that percentile. 80th, well, there's 0.8. You do the same thing. Measure over to the curve. As soon as you hit it, go down. There it is. There it is. That's around 88,500 people because your attendance is in thousands. You might be asked to go the other way. Like, what percentile would represent 70,000 in attendance? Well, 70,000 is somewhere down here, like maybe there. And so if you hit this and go over, you're looking at about the 15th percentile. So there it is. That's how you construct an ogive. That's how you interpret it as far as percentiles go. Okay? Then we did a little bit of reminder about interquartile range. Remember, that's the middle half of your data after you rank order it. So you've got 3 things in there. The 25th percentile, which is Q1. Your median, which I don't think is here, which is going to be your 50th percentile. And then Q3 is your 75th percentile. And you interpret it just like any other percentile. And then remember your IQR is Q3 minus Q1. Okay. All right, so this is your worksheet on ogives. It's page 27, and it's real quick and easy. But I did run through your packet example with a group, and I'm going to give it a shot here and see how it goes. Let's see, it's here somewhere. Okay. All right, so here we go, and this is scores on the DRP test. And a DRP test, I believe, is a, come on brain, it's a achievement test for younger kids. And so DRP, go ahead and get rid of that. Okay, here's your DRP, and it's administered to 44 students. So N equals 44. And if you recall, that number is between 33 and 64. All right, 2 to the 6th is 64, so that should be 6 classes. And if you look at this, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, so they have this going for us. It's really pretty much done. And just so you can be reminded of the rest of it, the highest value is 54 minus 14 divided by your number of classes, which is 6. That's 6.7, or remember you bump it up to, you bump it up to 7. Why did I make that a Z? And if you look at your first class limits, you take your smallest value, 14, which is your first value, and then you add 6 more to get 20. All right, and then 21 plus 6 is 27. You remember this. Then you need to extend this out so that 20.5 touches 20.5, and so these make a real histogram. You count up your frequency, and you count up your relative frequency. Okay, so I just want to show you the calculator moves for getting these two things. All right, so let me get the calculator up here. And I've already set up, these are your frequencies. These are your relative frequencies. This was column 3, column 4. And I want to get the last 2 columns, all right? You can label this frequencies and relative frequencies, but there's really no need. Just go ahead and put equals, and the command for cumulative sum is basically cumulative sum abbreviated. So it's CUM, SUM. And the calculator understands that, so put parentheses there and drop in an A to match that A and hit enter. And the bottom value should be 44. So it is. All right, so that looks like it works. It's working good. All right, then we can scoot over and fill in the other one with another cumulative sum for column B. All right, so again, that's the same cumulative sum, CUM, SUM, and parentheses, we'll put in a C. No, check that, that would be B. And that should add up to 1. And it does. So that's what goes in those last 2 columns. I just want to make sure that you get all of your calculator training, because you can use that sort of operation for other things. Okay? So I'm going to give a go at drawing this thing down here. This is going to be the same values you would have for a regular histogram. So it's going to start up here at 13.5. So 13.5, and then 20.5, and that goes to 27.5, and 34.5, 41.5, and 48.5, and finally 55.5. Okay, this is where I'm a little concerned about drawing straight lines. I think I'll give this a little bit more of a thicker brush flow. So we'll go to here, even a little higher. Okay. All right, the very first cumulative relative frequency we have is that. It might be a little bit too thick. Let's get a little thinner. Oops, hold on. Okay, so that's 0.14. All right, 0.14 is going to be almost halfway up. See, they're leaving numbers out. That's 0.1, 0.2, 0.3. So 0.14 is like right there. And down. Oops, that didn't go straight. Try to make it go straight. All right, so there's the first one. And then the next one is 0.3. 0.3 is here. So connect that as well as we can. And over here. Strange how it alternates on me, but we'll get it looking good. All right, and we'll put kind of a lid on that. That's not perfect, but that's good enough. Then 0.45 would be right about here. And right about here. See, it's accumulating. Sorry about that. I'm just going to leave it a little crooked. And we'll pretend it's straight. Then 0.68. 0.68 is a little bit before 0.7. So we're talking about right here. All right, we'll keep it trying. So much easier with a pencil and a ruler. cap it off, like right there or so. And then 0.89, we're getting there. 0.89 is a little bit below 0.9, like roughly right there. And then all the way up to 1. And there it is, complete. All right, that is the relative cumulative frequency histogram, or rather cumulative relative frequency histogram. Now we need to put in the ogive. So again, you're going to go bottom left, down here, to upper right, like right there. And keep doing that. So you're going to go to here, and to here, and to here. Now you notice that this is going to go steeper. That's where you're accumulating your relative frequency more quickly. And then here. And then finally here. Okay? If we could get rid of the blue, we would be all good to go. But let's keep it. So let's start answering these questions. All right, 20th percentile, that's 0.2. So just land here, draw over to your curve, hit it, and then go down. That's not good. It's always better when it's straight, like so. Get it as good as you can get it. All right, and that looks to be about 22 or 23. And let's just say about. Remember, this is approximation. And 90th percentile would be way up here. So draw over to your ogive, and then down. Okay, as careful as you can make it is always the best way to go. So this is about 49. All right, median would be at 0.5. There's 0.5 right there. So over to the curve, and then down. All right. And that looks to be about 36 or so. You may interpret it a little differently, but so long as we're close, that's good. And the IQR, remember, IQR is going to be Q3 minus Q1. So we need Q1, which is your 25th percentile, and we need Q3. And once we get those two numbers, we can just go ahead and subtract. So 25th percentile is about like right there, and then down. All right, I'm going to call that at about 25. And then Q3 is your 75th percentile. That's up here. So gone over to your ogive and then down. And I'm going to call that at about 44. So your IQR is going to be 44 minus 25, and that'll be 19. And if you actually process the numbers, the actual IQR is 18 if you do it with your calculator. So it's a good model. It works pretty good for estimating, and that's how you do ogives. So I'm going to spare you anything else, and I'm going to go ahead and close, and I will see you shortly. All right, so we have a little bit of an addendum for this year, and I want to just run through one of the problems on percentiles. It's sort of like your homework, although the homework is in chapter 2, 1 through 11 odd. This is number 4. But if you can kind of follow along with this, you should be in pretty good shape. So we've got a study. Teenagers ages 13 to 17 are by far the most prolific texters. I guess you guys should know, sending 1,742 messages a month. So Mr. Williams, high school stats teacher, was skeptical. So he collected data from his first period stats class on the number of text messages they had sent over the past 24 hours. So the data he gathered, like this person didn't send any, this person sent 118, this person sent 5, and so on. And there's 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, 18, 20, 22, 24, 25. So let's record that real quickly. If I can get this to show. So n equals 25. That's actually kind of a useful number. So let's answer these questions. But what I think we ought to do first is load up this data in the calculator, since we're looking for percentiles, and that sort of implies order. Like, remember quartiles? We had to order the data. Median required an ordered data set. So here are those texts from those 25 students, and I've entered it. I labeled it text, and I'm going to highlight everything and just sort. Now you should know how to sort by now, and I'm not going to show the 84 because it's the same thing, and it's going to be ascending. So there it is. So we got that all sorted, and let's go back to these questions. It says for letter A, Sunny was the student who sent 42 text messages. What is Sunny's percentile? So let's go ahead, and if I can find where this is. Oh, there it is. So let's do A. And 42 text messages, let's find that out. So 42 is the, which value is that? All right. So let's go ahead and check. So let's see. You can tell by the number off to the left, and this is going to go up pretty quickly. So 42 is right there. All right, hers is the 19th value out of 25. But remember, a percentile represents the proportion of values below here. So what we're really interested in is the 18th. The 18th. So with that, or with us being armed with that, so this is the 19th. Sorry, made a little weird mark there. That's going to be the 19th value. So we want the 18th. And we don't really need to know what that value is. It's just going to end up being 18 over 25 times 100. And that should give us the percentile. And it turns out that'll be your 72nd percentile. Because 18 out of 25 is 72% of your data. All right, so below the 19th value is your 18th value, so 18 on down would be the count for the values that are below that particular percentile. So it turns out it's the 72nd percentile. You got to be careful. A lot of people just do 19 over 25 times 100, but you want the values below 42, the percentage of values below it. So let's look at B. Find the number of the text messages sent by Joelle, who is at the 20th percentile. All right, so let's just kind of do this. Let's just say we'll do 0.20 times 25, and that should give us the value where we can find the actual number at the 20th percentile. And if you multiply those together, you get the 5th value. All right, so let's find out what that 5th value is. It's going to be nice to have them numbered. And so just let's scoot up, and the 5th number is right here. It's 1. So the 20th percentile is 1. And that should cover that. So it's the 5th value, which is 1. Okay, so remember, the homework is the ogive sheet and then that AP problem after it. It's like number 2 and number 3. We went over the first one as an example, so number 2 and number 3 in the packet. And then don't forget chapter 2, all right? And we want 1 through 11 odd. Don't do chapter 1 because we're kind of sort of halfway in between 1 and 2. This is kind of a bridge lesson. So definitely go to chapter 2. I think it's page 125 or so. So on that note, we're going to close out and I will see you in class.